learn French and speak French. I want to hear from you. What does it necessarily mean to the music and music business, music creative people in the business, and of course people like you who are festival programmers? Do you think it's important? And
Very.
what does it mean? Would you start teaching French at?
No, I'm learning French. No, I wouldn't do that because Alliance is here. Alliance is here, and we have to support them as to have more students. And I think they are really. But I'm also very proud, and I don't know how the statistics are, but I'm very proud to see how many Ugandans are doing their best to learn French. Yeah. It's really great to see that the numbers are increasing. Of course, we had this COVID situation, but there are many Ugandans who want to learn French, and it's a good thing. But also from our programming perspective. As programmers, we face a lot of challenges if you're working with French artists and you don't speak French. First of all, like communication is in French. Of course, nowadays we try to do Google, but still there is that missing understanding of the language and the text. Contracts are always in French. If you're dealing with French agencies, they do their best to translate them, but it's also difficult for them. So if you know French, it's much easier. But I've also understood that really collaborations are always about conversation. And you cannot really have a conversation with someone who speaks a different language than you are. And that's why it's difficult, and it has been difficult for French companies and French artists to work with Anglophone artists or Anglophone countries, because there is not easy conversation. I have some of my friends who have been, now that I speak a little bit of French, I understand a bit of French. But I've had some of my folks whom, we could do business and they like what we're doing. They would like to do, but I don't speak French. And I say, Faisal, you have to learn French. You have to learn French. And I understand, I feel we want to do things, but the language is a barrier. And how do we break that barrier? By helping each other to learn each other's language and to make sure that we can keep up and see that we are easily having a conversation. There is no way you can collaborate with someone without conversation. Wow. And you have to understand the language in which you're conversing.
Wow. Faisal, I just want to pick from here. So
To be honest, you're an ambassador of ours, so to speak, because that's exactly what it does. It's smart. It uses the artificial intelligence to be able to tell you that the way you're running your business is not the right way. This is where you're doing poorly. This is where you're thriving. These are the products you're selling more. This is where you're making the losses. Fix that gap. This is where you're most likely to thrive. So you focus on that. And because of those insights, your small company starts targeting, the market directly, because you know what product sells, which means you are going to have bigger revenue, more revenue, which means your company is going to thrive. So instead of seeing these 8 companies collapsing after 1 year, we hope to see maybe all the 10 go through in the first year, so that we can have higher employment in the country, so that we can have our products in shelves, in the UK, in all over Europe, Paris, in the US, and all over.
how did you, as a child, if you visibly remember, what did you want to be in life?
Well, if I go back, I think I looked at two things as a child. I thought about, I looked up to the skies and I'd see the stars and, see the airplanes flying over. And as I was there, with my dad, looking after the cows, or with my grandma going fishing, or with my grandpa farming, I'd look up and go, wow, what are those things up there? And then someone told me, that's a space station. Go, okay, interesting. And what else is up there? Well, those are stars, and those are airplanes. I thought, well, it would be great, to figure out how those things work. Yeah. And so I guess that was one interesting, passion of mine as a little kid. Figuring out how aerospace vehicles work, and I guess that wasn't something which excited me a lot.
Wow. You said the two things. So how did you end up there? You were fishing with your grandmother, you mentioned, and farming with your father, and grazing with your grandfather. Why were you not able to pick one of these from these, three different distinct people, and then you ended up in the things that are up in the sky with all this interest? What was the motivation like? Was somebody an aerospace engineer? Was somebody thinking about the things up, or it just came to you?
It's, back then, we didn't have Wi-Fi. We didn't have mobile phones. We didn't even have phones, yes. Or television. We just had nature, and that was great, And we had stories around the campfire, around the hearth every evening. Yeah. We'd sit down and talk to each other. We lived quite close to national parks, so every now and again a lion would hop over and grab a cow and go and have supper as well. So we shared with the lion. So it was being at one with nature. Yeah. But what was important in all that was, allowing one's mind to imagine, allowing one's mind to run, to fly, to really go as far as one's mind could possibly go. Yeah. And if I think of looking at things from the space going down, I could still look down and figure out what's going on, on the fishing side. I could look at what's going on the farming side. I could look at what's going on the grazing side, because when you're up there, you can see everything. Yeah. But it also helps you appreciate how special the earth is. Yeah. So that's I'm most grateful for that natural environment that any kid in a rural village in Uganda or any other part of Africa right now has, that where you see every star. And I believe there is something special about that.
If you create a space which enables people to think and thrive, that's a bonus. Before I started working officially, I used to do a lot of freelance work. And as a young freelancer, my laptop was on my back. And I didn't have an internet connection. I didn't have an office desk. It was difficult for me to work at home. So what I did is I would go and sit in a restaurant, buy some tea or breakfast, and ask for a Wi-Fi password. And then I would sit there and have my breakfast slowly, as I did my work, and I sent work to clients and everything, But before long, lunchtime, it would be lunchtime, and they would
be forced to eat also.
They would bring you lunch menu. You see what I mean? Yes. So when you find a space where people can come and sit and pay for a full day.
10,000, I'm told.
Yes, you see, that is creativity. Because the owner of this building or the owner of this space knows that people, there's a certain segment of the market that can't afford to rent a premises per square meter or 10 square meters or 100 square meters and pay monthly and bring their own furniture, their own internet connection, carpeting, light and everything, a working bathroom, and then lunch for staff members. So they think about it creatively and they say, how many people can this space take? 100 people per day. Okay, good. If each of those people pays 10,000 per day, and they come and have access to the internet and a nice chair and a desk and a good environment where they can concentrate and deliver. That is brilliant. That is creativity in the workplace.
Welcome to the program. My name is Eddie Okila, and of course it's the Creative Industry Talk this week. It's been a while, it's been a moment, it's been a whole lot of things going on. This week on the program, we continue with our series on the New Africa-France Summit 2021, the new relationship of France-Africa. What does it really mean to the creative industry in Uganda? What does it mean to the Ugandan creative industry? And we're breaking this down one by one until we get to the point where we talk about business. What does it mean from a political point of view? What does it mean from a creative point of view? But this particular show or program, we are talking about what does the New Africa-France Summit particularly mean to the Uganda creative industry, and to be specific, from the festival programmers or the festival organizers. And to break this down for us on the show this week, fresh from Montpellier, is the one and only Faisal Kiwewa. Faisal, bonjour, ça va bien? Welcome to the program.
Oui.
Yes. So, while you're in France, you've been away for a while, and people have been wondering whether you have abandoned the show. What has happened to Faisal? Where is he? I said, the man is an international villager. He's always moving, so he's somewhere. And welcome back.
Thank you.
To start the show with immediately, we just want to go straight to something that people have been talking about quite a bit. And I want to just, you attended the summit in France. What does this summit really mean, this new relationship France-Africa mean to the creative industry, particularly, first of all, to Africa? What does it mean? Yes.
I think the biggest question here is because I really don't think people should get over too much ahead of themselves when it comes to what does the relationship mean and how does it come about. But I think really understanding it, you need to go back to the history of France and Africa. And also, to be fair, I think for me, this is my personal opinion, I think to be fair, Africa is a continent of almost, 54 states, and France is one country as well, is one state. So I think we should be fair not to expect too much from France, because it's one small country on looking out for this big continent of 54 states. So I want to be really, for me to be sure that I'm not going to expect too much, but there is a new relationship that is growing. Then also to understand this relationship as well is also to have been there at that moment, to be there in the space, to see what are these people talking about, how are they engaging, because there's news, there is talking, but there's also body language. For me personally, I think it was very interesting to observe the body language of the people who have called us for a conversation. What does it say? Are they serious? Are they just inviting us? And I think the last thing about it, understanding it, is that it was very, very clear, I think for the first time, to see such a political space taken by creatives and young people, not politicians. And of course, it doesn't mean that France doesn't do politics with Africa, but it was a space whereby we're not going to dragged into protocol issues or whatever. You are in an environment where you are talking freely with each other. And even with Macron himself and his ministers, we're just really talking. There was not really any tensions on don't get too close or things like that. So for me, I felt like the opportunity was to actually physically see the young people from Africa and how they are engaging. And I think the most also important thing from the French perspective, I think, is that we realize that there are 7 million French citizens living on the continent. Yeah. So these 7 million French citizens living on the continent, I think the French government has an obligation to plan and prepare and take care of its citizens. So if the politics has only been talking about politics and nothing is going to work, yet they have their own citizens on the continent that will need to see France as their country that is taking care of them, they need to start investing in those communities. So these are the things really, like for me, the 4 or 5 major topics I was looking at while I was there.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Faisal, for breaking that. And I want to just take a moment to welcome everybody who is out there to the program. Creative Industry Talk is a program that exists for us creative to express ourselves, for us to share ideas, for us to bring topical issues that we need to talk about, things that must be discussed at this point in time. And of course, we're bringing policy makers onto the platform, bringing every single one of those people who we think is important to the Creative Industry Talk. France is no different. And when France says that we want to start a new relationship with Africa, like Faisal said, 54 states versus 1 country. We also know that that 1 country is part of the G6, G7, which means that there are a bigger number of people involved behind France. But it's an interesting point here for creatives, and we're going to talk to Faisal for the next 45 minutes about what does this really mean to the festival organizers. Faisal Kiwewa is the founder of an artistic director of Bayimba Cultural Foundation, an organization that sprang out of Kampala, out of Uganda, to the rest of the world, doing international festivals and interacting with so many other people across the world doing, festival. And Faisal is better suited for that. He's also a panelist on the Creative Industry Talk. Faisal, before we take a break, and we want to invite everyone to actually be part of this conversation. If you are creative, share it far and wide with every single one of those people out. This conversation must be heard and must take place. Yeah. Faisal, I like what you have said. I want to take you straight. So sitting there, you said you watched a lot of body language. And I think that most people don't pay attention to that. But for me, that is very important, that when somebody is speaking, you watch the body language. Do they really mean what they're saying? Yeah. And I want to ask you a question that, we've been asking these questions. And I want to ask you this question again from your perspective. Do you think this relationship, this new direction from France, actually should be taken serious by the Africans?
Definitely. I think if the French were not really engaged and ready to, to create this new paradigm with all the young people in Africa, they wouldn't have invested so much into this whole conversation. I think what is important is really to recognize the fact that France has had a lot of trouble in Africa, given its Francophone territory in West Africa. And then it had also had a lot of disconnection from the Anglophone, the Russophone, and the Spanish-speaking African countries. So when you find the investments that France make in the Francophone Africa are not the same investments or opportunities that are in the Anglophone Africa and the Russophone Africa, when we talk about the Portuguese-speaking African countries like Mozambique and Angola. So they are realizing that, okay, if we have people in Africa, they're not only living in the Francophone African countries, but they're also living in the Anglophone countries. And I think the strategy here, this is my observation, is that it's not that it's going to be a direct government engagement with young people. No, I think that's why they brought in partners like INPay, which is an investment agency. They brought in like AFD, which is the French development agency. They brought in Organization of Institute of Francophonie countries. They brought in Institut Français. These are the gatekeepers. These are the people who are going to be dealing with us, the young people. And the conversations were about, okay, what is AFD doing? And for me, it was very interesting to find that we've known AFD as a development agency for France, but investing in big businesses, infrastructure, roads, government, and projects, but they had never thought about the creative industry. And for them to have this conversation, influenced by the French policies on how to engage with the new Africa, and also realizing that their politics has not worked, but the many young people now are taking over in Mali, in Gambia, they are realizing that these young people, they don't know what's going on with them. They need to get to tap into their knowledge and see what's going on in their head so that they can also understand them as well as support them.
Wow. Faisal, I wanted to throw light a little bit more before we go into a break. Sitting there and watching what was there on that stage from a creative perspective, from a festival organizer, from a musical programmer, what opportunities did you see that there was present on that stage for musicians, for creative minds in the music industry festival like yourself?
I think for me, what I would say that I had a very good opportunity to engage with the Minister of Economics from the French government, and also the Director General of the Institut Français, and we had a very candid discussion on how and for me, my job was really to tell them, guys, you've invested enough, not enough maybe, but you've invested a lot in the Francophone Africa.
Yes.
If you go to West Africa, you go to Burkina, you go to Ghana, to Ivory Coast, there are big concert spaces with the Institut Français. They are set up by the French. They are run, they are facilitated. There are musicians who tour France every year because of the Francophonie support, because they are part of the IOF, the Institute, the Organization of Francophone speaking countries. So these people have had these opportunities, and my job was to tell them, like, look, we are also the Anglophone. We are interested in your culture. We are interested in your art. We are interested in your artists. But also, we also have artists that we think would add value to your French artistic scene. So why don't you also invest the same way you're investing in the Francophone African countries? So the idea for me was to engage them to realize that they need to balance their investment when it comes to art, to culture, to opportunities for artists, to, they give visas for artists from West Africa all the time. It's difficult to get a visa when you're from Anglophone country, to go to France to perform or to do what. They're always supporting them to do kind of art. So I was really interested in cultivating this conversation and seeing that, also appreciating the fact that agencies like FD are really starting to invest in the creative industries.
Wow. Well, thank you very much, Faisal. We are talking to Faisal Kiwewa here, and this is the Creative Industry Talk. My name is Eddie Okila, and you out there can share your comments, kisses, and disses coming. Please talk to us. Post it there, and we'll be able to read it here. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll dive into the real conversation from Faisal, from the festival organizer, from the festival programmer, where there are many programmers into that program. What does it really mean from us, touring and going into France and, beginning to sort of like move across, the interaction between the Anglophone countries, in Africa versus the Francophone countries in Africa. We've not been doing this together. There's been a language barrier for that matter. And now the French are saying, learn the French and be able to communicate. Is it just to communicate or to do business? We'll be talking about this after the break. Stay right there. This is the Creative Industry Talk. Eddie Okila, Faisal, we'll be right back after this.
Of the pack. It helps you become the trendsetter. Humankind is set in a way that they will always have a thing for the pioneer of things.
Yeah.
So we see it, if you think about these big corporations we see in Uganda and how they advertise and the different promotions they bring, you will somehow the target market will always have the pioneer front of mind. So for me, creativity, that is how important it is, because you will get the masters, you'll be an A-lister on the papers. But if you do not know how to channel, because there's not one company in the arts or in business, as we know it, there's not a company that hires more than 10 people, and all of them are not creative. There is always creativity in a company.
Yeah.
La maison des profs, des Français,
c'est l'Alliance française.
Une fille m'a posé une question, pourquoi prendre le français alors que je lui parlais de la radio Bonjour Kampala. Oh, venez, 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 venez.
Venez apprendre les français.
Je vous invite à venir.
Venez.
Welcome back from the break. This is the Creative Industry Talk. My name is Eddie Okila, and in the studio is Faisal Kiwewa, the founder and artistic director of Bayimba Cultural Foundation. Is a festival organizer, music manager, and of course a talent developer in Uganda. He's doing this across Uganda and across Africa, and of course going to the world. There's a brand developed from Uganda. Faisal, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
We are talking about the New Africa France Summit, the relationship that we're talking about, the New Africa France relationship. They're saying we're starting from afresh. Let the bygone be bygone, let the new thing begin. But Faisal, I want to just take you to this moment. What does this really mean to the festival programmers like you?
Yeah.
Let's dig a little bit deeper.
No, I think we have to acknowledge the fact that we've worked with the French for a long time. Bayimba has been in relationship with the Institut Français for quite many years, and they have supported artists who have come to our festival in the past. But there wasn't a priority for the Institut Français to work with a festival from an Anglophone country. Now, I think what this relationship is going to bring is getting the directors and artists to work more directly with the French agencies, as well as other festival organizers around the continent. So for me, it was really interesting to see that at least now there is a recognition that yes, we've done a lot in the Francophone Africa. Now we can also do something, or start to think around how can we do something in the Anglophone Africa, which means that it will make it easier for us as programmers to get artists from France to come to perform at our festival, and also engage into collaborations and exchanges that can be having artists from Uganda to go and perform in France at festivals, at markets, at events and things like that. So I think there is that really something that is coming as an advantage to the creatives here in Uganda.
Okay, talking from that and picking from there, Faisal, I just want to know from you, what was the general feeling from most of the musical promoters or the music promoters that sat in that conference that day in Montpellier when we were there and President Macron was addressing and we were having this conference happening? What was the feeling like from the musical or the music promoters and the festival promoters. Yeah.
I think there was a lot of people, different. Of course, there were different. I think Peter talked about it as well. There were agriculturalists, economists. There were inventors, fashion designers. I was actually amazed to find so many Ugandans who attended. I think we were like 50 plus who were there and as a delegation. And I think what is for me exciting is to really see that people are questioning themselves. They are really like, do they really mean it? You know, what's in for them? What's in for them? I had a conversation on a bus when I was leaving the airport with a colleague from Rwanda, and he was like, Faisal, what's your opinion on this whole deal with the French? Do you think they are trying to trick us into something, a new colonization or something? But I think, first of all, if you felt that way, then you shouldn't be there. And two, I think it's we have always to look at what are we giving and what are we getting, and how do we negotiate ourselves to be part of the conversation that we are being introduced into. I think for me, without everything else, the initiative of inviting young creatives and young people was already a big deal. So for me, it kind of opened up barriers. It kind of opened up a new era of engagement. And I think, as President Macron said, that he is not going to say that we should forget the past, but we shouldn't be failing to forge a new future. And I think this is something, it's not only his responsibility, because he's also only in office for 5 years or 4, and then maybe another president might come, or maybe he comes back. But you have to give him the opportunity and give yourself the challenge to pick up the steps. If he is saying, okay, can we forge a new era? Can we forge a new chapter? How can we work together? The question is, how can we work together? I have the responsibility to think on how to help him realize his vision, because I will benefit from it. So for me, it's really about to see how these other festival directors are looking at, okay, Faisal, if there's an opportunity to exchange, if there's an opportunity to learn together, if there's an opportunity to collaborate, can we start here? I met so many of my friends. Of course, we have been in COVID time, all locked down, and it was really nice to catch up. For me, it was kind of like a reunion with all my colleagues in the business. And I think it was really fascinating to see that they are not sure, but I also think the time was too short to really go deeper into each and every conversation. There are so many speakers, so many exciting things. So I really think that from a festival programming perspective, the opportunities are there, and so many people are now starting to think around how can they start forging collaborations and exchanges.
Wow. Thank you very much, Faisal, for that. I want to just drive your attention to something that we always look down on. When a new relationship is coming, there must be communication to that new relationship. People must understand where we are coming from. And attitude and perception of people from the past, as we forge a way forward, like President Macron says, that we should not forget the past, that it does exist, but also the past should not stop us from forging a way forward, to think business and think a new direction. But there is a huge part that must be communicated clearly, and people must understand it. From what I gather all across Africa, and I've been talking to so many other people from different countries, from Rwanda, Burundi, I've had a chat with guys in Angola, people have said that, well, they are talking like that, but yet the French people inside the country itself feel like the Macron is opening up a new kind of things. We're already tired of these guys. You want to bring them here, you're opening room for them to come. It's not being received very well internally. I mean, when you guys were there in France, what was the feeling like when you're driving around in a bus or going there? Were people feeling like, look at this?
No, I think of course there were demonstrations. There was a demonstration of some young people who called them France for France, and their point was clear. They were like, why are you investing money in Africa yet we still have ghettos in France? And it's a valid point. From their point of view, they were really, really very strict on that. They were really demonstrating. But also on the other hand, when I look at the city of Montpellier, that everywhere I went to the restaurant, they were excited. Oh, you're from the Africa Summit. So they were happy that week they were making some revenue. extra revenue after, don't forget, it has been COVID time,
Yes.
people have been locked down. Yeah. Now we have all these 3,000 people in the city. It's a beautiful city, by the way. So you have all these 3,000 people, and they're eating, they're drinking, they're staying in the hotels and stuff like that. So the economy was facilitated. Yeah. And it's not us, we didn't pay the bill. It's the French government that was paying the bill. So this is also something that the city was benefiting from. Of course, there are also other people who are saying, thinking that, okay, France should have focus on its problem. Of course, France has its problems, many problems, and those problems are not only within France, internally with the people, but it's also outside of France. Yeah. That's what brought about this lady from Burkina talking about the serving with one hand and taking with the other, supporting the military and then calling the youth to engage into a conversation. Mm-hmm. So, of course, there are so many other parts that play in this whole business, and I think the government also has to set its agenda and set its priorities. But that doesn't stop people from protesting its ideas. So for me, it's a normal thing. It's just that their protests are handled in a much more civilized way than we do here. So I would think that there were valid demonstrations, and they had to be honest. I wasn't French. I wasn't offended, and I felt like they really had a right to demonstrate, because you cannot invite 3,000 people, spend all these millions on them for one day, and you still have ghettos where people, young people, are living in places where there is no, safe water, where there are so many problems that they have. So I think they had the right to demonstrate, but at the same time, I felt like also I had a very good opportunity to meet my new peers and to see that there is a bigger picture coming into this new relationship.
Okay. Talking of that, by the way, Faisal, from the point of demonstration. And then you say that the French paid all the bills. There are some sections that believe that there was, some people were treated fairly, others were treated differently, others says that we should have paid all the bills. I moderated some of the conversation that was going on, and I was just speaking from different people from all across Africa. Ever since we started running this program here on the Creative Industry Talk, we've been receiving comments from people from all across Africa. This is actually only platform where actually the review of the summit is happening. Yeah. It's only on Creative Industry Talk, and people have been writing to me from all over Benin, name it, Nigeria. I've interacted with people in Nigeria, and everyone is saying, well, I mean, the conversation, okay, we wish we could have the same, all the people who went, 3,000 people can actually be able to give their feedback. But there was also a feeling that, France should have paid all the bills, that some people were given the air ticket, they had to take care of themselves when they were there. So there was assumption that everyone who was invited could have had a certain amount of money. But Africa has a number of challenges. I could be a very good business person, but if you give me the treat like that, I think is everything. So some people came with a different feeling altogether. What was the feeling like from the Ugandan camp? Uganda took the biggest number.
I think, I don't know. I think there were more other countries that really took a big number. Yeah. But I wouldn't say, I wasn't really camping with them. And actually, I met a few of them. I just bumped into some and be like, hey, you're here. Yeah. What are you doing? I knew some who were there, like Daudi and others. So, but again, I think going back to this whole issue of who paid the bill and what. I think sometimes people miss the point. Yes. And also sometimes we tend to think that when you're invited, someone has to take care of you. I think, yes, they paid for my ticket and my hotel, but they didn't feed me. And I didn't complain, but I felt like my feeding myself was valid because I had a very relevant reason why I was there. I wasn't there just to be part of the conversation. I was giving a presentation, I was meeting with ministers, I was meeting with the stakeholders, and I was there for a purpose. Yeah. So I'm not going to look at why did France pay all the food and everything that, they already did me a favor to invite me, because it was also a very long process to get invited to this event. Yes, it was a very difficult process. First of all, you had to be fully vaccinated. If you're not fully vaccinated, then you could go a week before, and be quarantined for 7 days. Then if you test negative, you can have access to the space. So there was a long process. And that whole process cost the French government a lot of money, you know. And when we were returning, we all got our COVID vaccinations for free. So we didn't have, so these are the things that we also have to look at. I think we have to look at the reasons why we were there. I was not there to take selfies. I was not there to just be part of the gathering. I was there for a reason, and I felt like I needed to achieve some of the things that I need to achieve because I'm just there, and the conference is for one day. I need to take advantage of my time and the people who are there to get something out of it. So I managed to build onto my contact list. I managed to meet important people that I think I'm going to engage with in the future, and I'm looking forward to working with the Institut Français, with the Minister of Commerce, the French Development Agency, because I realized that when you have a conversation, even if their policies and agendas are not in line with what you're doing, they can start thinking around, okay, what is the added value here? And if you can make a good case, then they would slowly start coming into the case. And I think the steps are already there. So I'm totally not, into why I wasn't given money for food, but everything else was taken care of, and I totally got value for the time I spent there.
Wow. And talking of that, Faisal, I've just seen a message coming from somebody else says we need to talk about the Africa way of doing things. Sometimes we the Africans expect that we need to be given everything, and everything, we don't want to spend anything. But we're saying that the new relationship means that you also
it's a give and take,
a give and take situation. What is your take on that one? Of sometimes we have this mentality all across Africa that if you're giving me, then you have to give me everything. And so when I give you everything, there's a possibility that I can name a price and buy you at my cost.
Yeah, but I think also the issue of people thinking France has taken so much from Africa that they need it back in terms of now, you took our gold, you took our goods, of course they are taking a lot, to be honest. When you look at, West Africa, it's French, you go there, it's Orange, you cannot have any other network. Every city you use Orange, you use Canal Plus, so they're doing business, meaning they're taking. But I think the idea that they have realized that they need to give back, and not giving back just in terms of sponsoring festivals and events, which they do a lot in the Francophone Africa. Every festival, every event is supported by Orange, is supported by Canal Plus. So they are really giving that. But now they're really looking into investing in the new generation of thinkers, of IT guys, because they also need the workforce. You can't keep up with bringing people from France to come and work in your territories. So I think this is a very good venture, and I'm not really, sad about what they're doing and how they're doing it. What I need to do is to see what role do I play in this new relationship. And I think it's important for people to really think around not only how much am I going to get. Yes, we all need something, but it has to come when you're prepared and ready to use it the best way possible. So it's not just pocket money. Oh, let me go to Alliance Française or Institut Français and they give me 10,000 euros. What are you going to use it for? How are you adding to their goal of having a bilateral relation with Africa? So I think for me, my responsibility now is to see how can I prepare myself when the opportunity comes? Because this is the beginning. We're just starting a conversation. If the opportunity comes and now France says, okay, now like AFD has put in I think 5 million euros into the creative industries, and that means that in the next 5 years we have 5 million euros to spend on the creative industries in Africa. And at the moment we are working with like 7 countries. We are adding on more. Uganda is one of them. So there is a big opportunity, and if that opportunity is going to expound, how am I prepared to take advantage of that, to be part of that pool that is going to be supported as well? Because I just don't only fit into the idea of being Ugandan and being part of the conversation, but I'm also helping the French government to achieve its goal of forging this new partnership with Africa.
Wow. Well, we're talking about the New Africa France Summit 2020. What does it really mean for Uganda's creative industry in the festival programming? And of course, the Creative Industry Talk today is hosting Faisal Kiwewa from Bayimba Cultural Foundation, fresh from the New Africa Summit in Montpellier. Yeah, is back here. That word is disturbing. But Faisal, we want to take a break, and when we come back, we want to continue this conversation from what the ambassador extraordinaire, as I call him, Jules Aman, said, that I would want us to think about the next step. Not to look at what has happened, but the next step. And he talks about a few things. You know, the new relationship means, you know, respect for one another. It means integrity. It means a commitment. It means that, you know, mutual respect for businesses. And he says that creativity is where the business is. And I believe that no business in the world can exist without creative people.
No.
And there cannot be, you know, marketing and sales and communication if there are no communication from the creative people. So,
and I think also, just to add on to that, it's also important for people to understand that, as I said earlier, that we need also to prepare ourselves. When the opportunity shows up, how prepared are you? If you want to level with France, you know, as Africa, you want to level with France, what does France see as a ground level? How are we going to balance our, you know, levels of trade, levels of product development, levels of education, you know, in knowledge, IT? You have to see yourself at the more where the French is, so that you can start to build up to be leveling with them. But if you say, okay, we have started this relationship, and you're going to sit back and relax, and then wait for France to tell you, okay, now we need engineers, and be like, wait a minute, I don't have an engineer. So you are not going to level. So meaning that we have had an opportunity to open up a new era. And this opportunity means that we have to start preparing ourselves to meet the standards of this new era. We are not going to just be there as Africans and wait to be told, okay, now we need students to go to, like what they're doing in Qatar and in the Middle East, taking all our young kids there to do what? That's modern slavery. Are we so badly off that we can't take care of our own kids? And we send them to other people to, you know, to treat them the way they want. So I think this is something that we need to learn, to say that, okay, France has opened up an opportunity. How are we going to prepare ourselves to be able to catch up and start playing at a leveled ground?
Wow. Well, we are talking to Faisal Kiwewa, and this is a Creative Industry Talk live on House of Talent Television. My name is Eddie Okila. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we will discuss what next for what could be the next step, or what's next for the creative industry, you know, to pick up from that pieces. And of course, Faisal and I will be back to break down. We want to hear from you. Do you have a cases or comment from all across, whether in Africa, Europe, wherever you are, you're watching the program, please share with us, and we'll definitely be able to read your comments, and we want to hear your thoughts. Stay right there. We'll be right back after this. This is the Creative Industry Talk.
Mon frère, viens ma sœur, à l'Alliance française.
À l'Alliance française.
Venez,
apprendre le français. Venez à l'Alliance française.
Venez,
apprendre le français. Venez à l'Alliance française.
Je vous invite à venir.
Venez apprendre le français. Venez à l'Alliance française.
La plus largement appris après l'anglais. Les Français sont langue étrangère, la plus largement appris
après l'anglais.
La connaissance du français ouvre des portes, des entreprises en France
comme à l'étranger.
La connaissance du français ouvre des portes, des entreprises en France c'est la langue de la culture.
La langue internationale pour la cuisine.
La mode, les théâtres, les habitués. La danse et
l'architecture.
Le français, la langue de la culture. La langue internationale.
Welcome back from that break. That is a song from Alliance Française. And Faisal, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
And there was a big problem of the people who went to France. Many of the people from the Anglophone countries didn't understand French and didn't speak French. And so they were relying mostly on the translations. And translation can, things can disappear. Thankfully, for some people who were close, had engineer Peter Nyeko, who was able to break things down. I've had a lot of comments coming from so many other people who were saying, no, it was difficult, we couldn't hear. And do you think that it's important for Africans to start learning French now?
Of course. If you want to do, if you want to pick up, again, it's part of the whole package of starting a new relationship. To be honest, if you want to be, if you want to trade with someone, you have to learn their language. As much as they are also struggling to learn our language. It's not easy for French people to speak English. It's not easy because they're very proud. There's a very, very particular language that they are very proud of as part of their culture, but also part of their, their linguistic background. So seeing Macron speaking English because he has realized, and that's really bending the knee for a president. Really, like he knows that yes, there are Francophone people who don't even understand the one word of English, but there are also these very many English people who he wants also to reach. He wants his message to be clear. And he says it in English. So I think it's very important for us as well to start thinking, how do we learn French? How do we start? You can't work with people if you can't understand each other.
There is a thinking that, people have been talking about this, and the French embassy has been pushing this quite a bit ever since, that people should learn French, and speak French. I want to hear from you, what does it necessarily mean to the music and music business, music creative people in the business, and of course people like you who are festival programmers. Do you think it's important? And what does it mean? Would you start teaching French at?
No, I'm learning French. No, I wouldn't do that because Alliance is here. Alliance is here, and we have to support them as to have more students. And I think they are ready. But I'm also very proud, and I don't know how the statistics are, but I'm very proud to see how many Ugandans are doing their best to learn French. It's really great to see that the numbers are increasing. Of course, we had this COVID situation, but there are many Ugandans who want to learn French, and it's a good thing. But also from our programming perspective, as programmers, we face a lot of challenges if you're working with French artists and you don't speak French. First of all, like communication is in French. Of course, nowadays we try to do Google, but still there is that missing understanding of the language and the text. Contracts are always in French. If you're dealing with French agencies, they do their best to translate them, but it's also difficult for them. So if you know French, it's much easier. But I've also understood that really collaborations are always about conversation. And you cannot really have a conversation with someone who speaks a different language than you are. And that's why it's difficult, and it has been difficult for French companies and French artists to work with Anglophone artists or Anglophone countries because there is not easy conversation. I have some of my friends who have been, now that I speak a little bit of French, I understand a bit of French. But I've had some of my folks whom, we could do business and they like what we're doing. They would like to do, but I don't speak French. And I say, Faisal, you have to learn French. You have to learn French. And I understand, I feel we want to do things, but the language is a barrier. And how do we break that barrier? By helping each other to learn each other's language and to make sure that we can keep up and see that we are easily having a conversation. There is no way you can collaborate with someone without conversation.
Wow.
And you have to understand the language in which you're conversing.
Wow. Faisal, I just want to pick from here. So a lot of people say that, do I learn French just to speak to these guys? What guarantee do I have that when I learn French, I will actually do business, or I will go to France or do business with the French people? What's your take on that? When I talked to a musician and says, I asked him, now that France is talking about the new, France, the new Africa-France relationship, would you learn French and sing in French? And he says, why can't I sing in my language and they also translate in their language? And I says that the French people are very proud of their language. We should also be very proud of our language. Then I said, France is aware of who France is and what France have to be. Unfortunately, not most of us in Africa are aware of, like, for example, who we are and what we want to be and how we want to be. But they are very specific. They know who they are, they know what they want to be, and so they would always be proud of their language than us. But what I want you to really throw light on is a photographer. I asked another photographer who is a creative person, and he says, just to learn French because I want to go and take pictures in France. In France, I'm not going to do that.
No,
I mean, what do you think about this?
I think it's a wrong thing to say or to think like that, unless if you don't have any business or any idea or interest in a country or in a language, because we all don't go to school to be who we learn, who we study. We go to school because it's a necessity. It helps us to navigate challenges that we face in the future. If you study science and you're doing agriculture, it doesn't mean that what you studied was a waste of time. So if you learn a language and there is an opportunity for you to trade, to engage, to collaborate, then that investment has paid off. It's not a waste of money. And also, I don't think everyone who learns French here is looking at going to Paris. Oh, I'm going to Paris next week. Let me go and do oui, bonsoir. No, I think it's really getting themselves prepared for any opportunity that comes along. If someone comes, I have a job and I want someone who's a bilingual or speaking French and English, and you happen to be one of them, then the opportunity is yours. Maybe the job is not to take you to France, but to go to Hoima and translate for the French company Total that is building a pipeline with Peter Nyeko, you know. So I think these are some of the things that really we learn languages for. And if it happens that there's a big opportunity where there's a direct trade between the two, why not, you know? But I wouldn't target on let me learn French to please the French people. No, I learn it because I think it's a good opportunity for me and a good added value to my CV, to my other opportunities that can come forth.
Okay, Faisal, that said, I'm going to take you straight to this point. We're talking about what does this really mean, or rather, what does it really mean to the French, to the African creatives? The African creatives for a long time have been sort of like finding it difficult to make it to the world stage. You're right? And of late, of course, we're seeing the rising influence and recognition of, you know, the African art on the global stage. We talked about it recently. And do you think that this new Africa-France relationship is going to help, you know, fasten the process of us getting to the world stage? When people begin to realize, are they genuine about this, you know, recognition on the global stage, or it's just
I wouldn't look at it that there is a very good you know, stairs. Now we're going to jump the stairs. You know, the process is going to be the same. They'll still ask you for your bank account and how much you have it to get a visa. Don't even think around that, oh, Macron is going to be like, be kind. No, they're not going to be kind. Why are they investing in Africa? From my opinion, it might not be their case. But how I look at it is like, yes, with everything else that we've talked about, but they're also looking at keeping African youth in their country or in their countries. Because why are people migrating? Why are people getting on the boats and dying in the ocean, in the sea, crossing, trying to get that opportunity to go to France? It's because they don't have opportunities. Our governments and our systems have let them down so much that they find them easier to get on a boat and whether die or not, but at least die trying, getting to Europe. So if you capacitate these young people, if you give them opportunities, if you invest in their ideas, they will definitely stay home. And if you invest in one idea or 10 ideas, it means that you're employing 100 people. Like Eddie here, with your, you know, venture. How many people do you give opportunities to work, to earn a living, even if it's small? But you're really assisting a few families to survive on that small thing that you're offering them. So if there are many 10 Eddies that are doing the same, in Imbara, in Mbale, in Kapchora, you know, you find that the young people would have woken up to think around getting on the boat or think around migrating to Europe. They have a job to do. They have something to look up to. Then I think the French are looking at it that way. How do we reduce on the numbers of people coming to our shores? How can we help these young people to achieve their dreams? How do we, because the systems have let them down, that's why you find there are so many coups of young people. In Mali, in Guinea, in all these, they are looking at, it's young people. And the old generation has really sat back, because for them, yes, they have made their revenues or resources, and now the young people are left to struggle. So I really think that the opportunities for the young people who have to also be able to think for themselves, and then the French can come in to keep them in their home countries, but supporting their own economies, because they don't have much to offer in France. And when they go there, not all of them are educated to get a good job. Yes, it's a change of environment, the opportunities to get some, 20 euros per hour to work, but that's not the life you want to be. If you want to be an engineer, you want to develop software, you want to create an investment in your own country, they are thinking of how do we support these young people to do that, so that they don't come showing up at our gates all the time.
Wow. Faisal, as we hasten up to the close of the program today, and I want to first of all, if you have a criticism or comment coming for Faisal, please share it. We will definitely read it here. We're talking about the new Africa-France, summit, or the new Afrique relationship that we have. And of course, recently with the summit in Montpellier, we discussed quite a number of these things. Of course, other people believe that the conference was too short to discuss and to exhaust many things. It's hopeful that this conversation will continue. But I think that we need to break this conversation, Faisal, from our local point of view here. We must understand. I mean, I'm not just going to show up to learn French because I must go to learn French, because now there's opportunity for me to do business with the Congolese. There's opportunity for me to do business with Senegalese. There's opportunity for me because it's now open, and they're saying there's this many billions of euros being put in Africa. It's meant for us to go, to the next step. Faisal, when we start back to have a discussion and to hear from you guys who are in France. Some of us were in France by just videos, statements, I think, yes. But you guys were there physically, and we look at these things. We wanted to basically hear from you. And all through that discussion, you were not there, unfortunately. We would have had your thoughts. It was an open floor. And the ambassador kept on pushing and asking questions. Says, I would like us to think of the next step. What would it be like? What do we do from this point, having gone there and come back? And unfortunately, to my dissatisfaction, so to say, most of the people who went to France didn't have a clear direction, of where, with the exception of very few. I think Paul Rukundo talked something that was a bit sensible. Some people didn't find opportunity to do any business, but I'm hearing you having an opportunity to discuss business, and you are following it up. Paul Rukundo was the same. There was Peter Nyeko, who had a few conversations, and it was the same. But a bigger number of people seems to have come back empty-handed. Some of them were language barrier. They couldn't speak French, so they couldn't even engage with the next person on the other side in France to discuss business. What do you think should be the next step going forward from the ambassadors, borrowing from the ambassadors' point of view? Yeah, I think, first of all, I wouldn't blame the people who didn't have come back with anything, because it was a very expose. I mean, to be in this space and so many people, you didn't know, some people, if you didn't know, you could not really do anything or speak to anyone, because there was so much. You see, because it wasn't only for the creatives, and there were basketballers, footballers, the Drogbas and stuff like that. So it was a spectacle, and that means that if you're not used to this kind of environment, you get lost in that way, and you need time to adjust to learn of things. So some people really were overwhelmed by the environment. But what needs to be done? I think some of my conversations with the IF and INPE and AFD, for me, and also the Minister for Economics, I was really emphasizing the fact of balancing investment. And we have to look at where we are. I'm speaking for Uganda, and this is my experience here.
when you look at the Francophone African countries, there's a lot of opportunities when it comes to support in the arts, when it comes to opportunities to perform around the world, to tour, to have spaces for performances. And there's only one Institut Français that is in an Anglophone country in the world, and I think that is in Ethiopia. All the other Anglophone countries have Alliance Française. They don't have the institutes, whereby the institutes comes with a package.
So what's the difference between the institute and
the institute is like, you know, there is a theater, there is a performance spaces, there is it's a whole, you know, it's like an institution. But
so
alliances,
is that like is the institute you know, a direct arm of the government?
exactly, it gets direct support, but for Alliance to survive and to carry on its programs, it gets a small budget from the embassy or from Total or from, but they don't get direct support. The institute gets direct support from the government, and that gives it much more opportunity to kind of program better, do more engagements, and support more artists. So I was thinking, like, I was asking, why don't we start looking at where do we need to invest? I don't mean that every Anglophone country needs an Institut Français, because also it's a monopoly in a way. When you go to the Anglophone, to the Francophone countries, everything happens at Alliance, at the Institut Français. You know, they do free programs, so they actually occupy the market, and they don't support people. But I was thinking from a point of, like, we don't have spaces. And it's not only in Uganda, in Kampala, but when you look around the country, all these new cities don't have spaces. How can we start investing in spaces for the artists, for the creatives to explore and to create work and to develop content? I also look at how do we start exchanging between African countries, you know, not only between the Francophone speaking countries, because you find sometimes that artists are on tour, and they are on touring Institut Français. They are not touring Alliance Française countries or the Anglophone countries, because there is no performance space, because there's, you know, you get what I mean. So how do we start facilitating this mobility of artists within the continent without saying they are Francophone or Lusophone or Anglophone or Spanish speaking? So I think it's that balance for me that I was looking at, and also to assess, because sometimes we get things wrong by just saying this is what we need to do, but yet it's not what you need to do. You need to first understand what is the problem when it comes to the creatives. What are we missing here in Uganda? What do we need spaces? Do we need support for trainings? Do we need capacity building for entrepreneurs? Do we need investment in technology? Do we need investment in systems? So what do we need? And I think if we can first assess ourselves to know where the problems. We have so many things going on, but we don't know what needs to come first, or what needs to come later, or afterwards. So I think it will be important that in these next steps, we first focus on each country, like for the embassy and the alliances and all the French agencies, to look at the country and say, okay, who are the young people here? What are they doing? What do they need? What do they have? Because that will give us a very good way of investing the right way. And making these deeper investments, they give us the opportunity to look at long-term engagements. Because my problem is, most of these small projects that they bring are very short-term. I support you, I'll give you 20,000 euros for 16 months and send me a report with this quantitative, qualitative statistics and blah, 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 blah. We don't need that anymore. We don't need that anymore, because our generation, we are not like, okay, before, 10 years ago, we needed that because we needed to learn how to do business. Now we've learned how to do business. We don't need to be trained how to do business anymore. We need to be given the opportunities to invest for longer term. Because this short term of workshop, I don't understand why people always run to this workshop money.
Maybe it's a strategy also, maybe it's something that we need to change, because a few section of people actually believe that there's one thing the president talking about this, the other thing is actually seeing it come to a realization. And they say that the mentality from some of these institutes is first, maybe this would be a PR, just stand to, make things happen. Given the pandemic, everybody's trying to bounce back from the superpower point of view. that maybe it's another saying no, it's actually real. But from what you have said, how can we change? What would be your advice to these people who give small monies and expect a huge number? What should they do different yes, going forward? From your perspective?
I think, to be honest, there are newcomers always who need this kind of support. And I've always engaged with my donors and I tell them, okay, I think I'm not at that level where I used to run around for 5,000 euros and 10,000. I mean, they don't, what do you do with 5,000 euros? But I think there are some young organizations, some young entrepreneurs who can really benefit from that money and can take them. That's why we are always financing these young entrepreneurs through our program, the Africa Creative, because we know they need that 20,000. It will take them. But also knowing that the institutions like Bayimba, that $20,000 or euros don't mean anything to us. We need bigger amounts to do bigger things, because we are moving our industry and the sector a step forward, because we've matured, we've progressed, we have ascended, they call it ascended from where we were in a very bad way. Now we are looking at the future, and that future means that it needs to be invested in a deeper way for a longer term. So we have to have open conversations on what kind of investment do we need. We were talking about investments before, and like, what kind of investments do we need? Are we talking about, equity? Are we talking about joint ventures? Are we talking about, we can have open conversations, but we don't, I think if we are always like, okay, FD is there, we are there, there's no meeting ground, there's no agenda, there's no opportunity to engage in a conversation, it becomes very difficult. So I've never had a deeper discussion with the French, any French people, although I work with them. But being in Montpellier, it gave me an understanding of a clear image or an understanding of how the government looks at its next steps of engagement. It was very warm, very open and natural and honest and genuine. And you think for yourself, okay, what am I gonna do to meet this engagement, to make it work? So I think we have to assess ourselves. We have to see what we need. We need to know what we need. We are not gonna say the embassy will tell us what to do. We need to know ourselves, and then from
that's what the ambassador was
exactly
asking for. What
we need to know ourselves, that because even if the embassy has 10 million euros now, we don't know where we have to invest this money. Yet we have so many problems. But we don't know what comes first, what comes next. So if we understand, if we are helped, or if we help ourselves to understand the problems we have, the things we have, the capacities we have, the capacities we need, then there it will be much, much more easier to develop, to create a strategy that we can achieve and invest our money wisely. But now everyone runs there because, I think I can get some money. They write a proposal, they take it's useless. I wouldn't fund that kind of projects. I want to see things that have a shared vision, something that is very overall contributing to a bigger change.
Wow. Well, that is Faisal right there, coming from the break and breaking things out. Fresh from Montpellier, back to Kampala, is talking about, what does this new Africa-France relationship mean for us? The show has come to an end, and we want to say thank you so much for giving us opportunity to be in your sitting room, on your mobile phone, in your computer, and of course
consuming your data.
Consuming your data, but giving you valuable information from a creative point of view. Faisal, we're gonna wrap this up quickly. I want to just look into that camera and tell us, the 3 things that we should take home today, that you think we should pick up from this conversation today. What does it mean from the creative and the festival programmer's point of view, which has music, dance, drama, theater, and the writers? Please go ahead.
Yeah, I think 3 things, I don't know. Offhand, I would say the first thing, the opportunities are there. And we've seen it, we've been shared, we've been told, and we've experienced it. So we think that we need, second, to prepare ourselves to, when the opportunity comes, we take it when we are ready. And I think that's the most important thing. The second thing is that I think it's important we try to learn the language. The language will help us, it will ease the conversation, it will ease the opportunities to collaboration, it will ease our engagement, because once people know that you've made an effort to learn or to understand their language, it makes it easier them even to trust, to know that you have an interest in what is going on. The third thing I would say, don't expect everything from France. They're not your parents, they're not your governments. They're also doing their best. They have so many problems, and this whole continent is looking up to them to support them. I know they have a history, but that's not our fault or the current people. I think we need to play a role ourselves. We need to see that if we want to play at a leveled ground, whereby if I am France, I have the same values and respect and work ethics and integrity like being in Uganda, then we'll do business. So let's see, how do we need to move forward, to level, to work together, to respect, to understand, to integrate, and to be open-minded. That's all. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Faisal, first of all, for giving us opportunity. We need to spread love with the other hand, so we have to spread love to everyone out there. Yeah. Well, the Creative Industry Talk has come to an end today. We want to say thank you very much, everybody, for being part of the show. Until next week, keep it locked. Creative Industry Talk, Eddie Okila, Faisal Kiwewa, signing out.
La